p.m. this evening to 1 p.m. Monday. On the time of high tide. Impact at 6.5 feet. Additional roadways near the tidal portions of the Elk River, Bohemia River, Back Creek, and other tidal tributaries begin to flood. Some damage to vulnerable structures may begin to occur. At 6.0 feet, widespread shoreline inundation occurs near Charlestown. Additional details, tide up to 6 feet above normal. The next high tide at Charlestown is at 8:57 p.m. and 8:50 a.m. The next high tide at Port Deposits is at 8:29 p.m. and 8:22 a.m. The next high tide at Chesapeake City is at 8:57 p.m. and 9:26 a.m. Take the necessary actions to protect our own property. Here is the area weather summary. Baltimore and Harford counties. When? Until 1 a.m. Thursday, especially around the time of high tide. Impacts at 5.5 feet. Widespread flooding of roads in downtown Baltimore is occurring, along with the Pier 4 Promenade on both sides, the Pier 5 Promenade on the west side. At 5.0 feet, significant flooding is occurring in the Boys Quarters area with yards, roads, and homes flooded. At 6.0 feet, the marina office at the Delaware Graveyard Basin is flooded, along with the surrounding area. Hutchins Park is flooded, as is the parking lot at Roberts Park. The dock at Pier No. 1 is also covered by water. Additional details. Normal. The next high tide at Fort McHenry, Baltimore is at 5:05 p.m. and 4:58 a.m. The next high tide at Delaware Grace is at 7:55 p.m. and 9:00 a.m. Take the necessary actions to protect flood-prone property. If travel is required, do not drive around barricades or through water of unknown depth. Flood warning in effect from late tonight to tomorrow evening. What? Minor flooding is forecast. Where? Brandywine Creek at Chad's Ford. When? From late tonight to tomorrow evening. Impacts at 8.0 feet. Open adjacent land next to the creek floods. At 10.0 feet, the intersections of Creek Road and Route 926 near Pocupson floods upstream of Chad's Ford. At 11.8 feet, Brandywine River Museum begins to take on water. Route 1 also takes on water. Additional details, at 3:30 p.m. Tuesday, the stage was 3.1 feet. Forecast, the river is expected to rise above flood stage just after midnight tonight to a crest of 10.8 feet tomorrow morning. It will then fall below flood stage early tomorrow afternoon. Flood stage is 9.0 feet. Flood history, this crest compares to the previous crest of 10.9 feet on December 25th, 2020. http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood. Flood warning in effect from late tonight to early Thursday morning. What? Minor flooding is forecast. Where? Thursday morning. River at Norristown. When? From late tonight to early Thursday morning. Impacts at 12.5 feet. Flooding occurs in West Norton. The West Indian Lane Bridge begins to flood. At 13.0 feet, water begins to cover and close Riverview Boulevard in West Norton. At 15.0 feet, River Road in West Conshohocken begins to flood. The lower garages at the Riverview Landing and the lofts at Valley Forge start to take on water. The lower section of Port Indian Road in West Norton becomes impassable. At 16.0 feet, the Upper Marion Boathouse starts to flood. Additional details, at 3:30 p.m. Tuesday, the stage was 9.1 feet. Forecast, the river is expected to rise above flood stage late tonight to a crest of 15.0 feet early tomorrow afternoon. It will then fall below flood stage late tomorrow evening. Flood stage is 13.0 feet. Flood history, this crest compares to a previous crest of 14.9 feet on December 28, 2023. http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood. rivers, creeks, streams, and other low-lying and flood-prone locations is imminent or occurring. Additional details, at 4:24 p.m., Doppler radar indicated heavy rain. Flooding is ongoing or expected to begin shortly in the warned area. Between 1 and 2 inches of rain have fallen. Additional rainfall amounts of 1 to 2 inches are possible in the warned area. Some locations that will experience flooding include Baltimore, Columbia, Bowie, Severn, Pikesville, College Park, Crofton, Middle River, Greenbelt, Langley Park, Beltsville, Elk Ridge, Riviera Beach, Bladensburg, Historic Ellicott City, Baltimore Washington Airport, Sparrows Point, University of Maryland, Glen Burnie, Ellicott City. Please visit www.weather.gov/safety/flood for flood safety and preparedness information. Turn around. Don't drown when encountering flooded roads. Most flood deaths occur in vehicles. Please report observed flooding to local emergency services or law enforcement and request they pass this information to the National Weather Service when you can do so safely. Here is the regional weather forecast. Flood stage tomorrow morning. Flood stage is 8.5 feet. Flood history. This crest compares to a previous crest of 9.4 feet on March 14, 2010. http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood. The following is a flood watch statement. 7 p.m. this evening to 1 p.m. Wednesday, especially around the time of high tide. Impacts, 6.5 feet. Additional roadways near the tidal portions of the Elk River, Bohemia River, Back Creek, and other tidal tributaries begin to flood. Some damage to vulnerable structures may begin to occur. At 6.0 feet, widespread shoreline inundation occurs near Charlestown. Additional details, tides up to 6 feet above normal. The next high tide at Charlestown is at 8:57 p.m. and 8:50 a.m. The next high tide at Port Deposit is at 8:29 p.m. and 8:22 a.m. The next high tide at Chesapeake City is at 8:57 p.m. and 9:26 a.m. Take the necessary actions to protect flood-prone property. If travel is required, do not drive around barricades or through water of unknown depth. Southern Baltimore. What? 2 to 3 feet of inundation above ground level in low-lying areas due to tidal flooding. What? 2 to 3 feet of inundation above ground level expected in low-lying areas due to tidal flooding. Until 1 a.m. Where? Shoreline in Cecil County. When? From 7 p.m. this evening to 1 p.m. Wednesday, especially around the time of high tide. Impacts at 6.5 feet. Additional roadways near the tidal portions of the Elk River, Bohemia River, Back Creek, and other tidal tributaries begin to flood. Some damage to vulnerable structures may begin to occur. At 6.0 feet, widespread shoreline inundation occurs near Charlestown. Additional details, tides up to 6 feet above normal. The next high tide at Charlestown is at 8:57 p.m. and 8:50 a.m. The next high tide at Port Deposit is at 8:29 p.m. and 8:22 a.m. The next high tide at Chesapeake City is at 8:57 p.m. and 9:26 a.m. Take the necessary actions to protect flood-prone property. If travel is required, do not drive around barricades or through water of unknown depth. The following is a coastal flood warning from the National Weather Service for the following county: Cecil, Maryland.
Oh, God.
What? 2 to 3 feet of inundation above ground level expected in low-lying areas due to tidal flooding. Where? Shoreline in Cecil County. When? From 7 p.m. this evening to 1 p.m. Wednesday, especially around the time of high tide. Impacts at 6.5 feet. Additional roadways near the tidal portions of the Elk River, Bohemia River, Back Creek, and other tidal tributaries begin to flood. Some damage to vulnerable structures may begin to occur. At 6.0 feet, widespread shoreline inundation occurs near Charlestown. Additional details, tides up to 6 feet above normal. The next high tide at Charlestown is at 8:57 p.m. and 8:50 a.m. The next high tide at Port Deposit is at 8:29 p.m. and 8:22 a.m. The next high tide at Chesapeake City is at 8:57 p.m. and 9:26 a.m. Take the necessary actions to protect flood-prone property. travel is required. Do not drive around barricades or through water of unknown depth. Flood warning in effect from this evening to late tomorrow evening. Minor flooding is forecast. Where? South Branch Raritan River at Stanton. When? From this evening to late tomorrow evening. Impacts at 5.0 feet, minor lowland flooding downstream of Gage. At 8.0 feet, right bank and approach to bridge is flooded. At 10.0 feet, houses downstream begin to take on water. Additional details, at 4:15 p.m. Tuesday the stage was 3.0 feet. Forecast, the river is expected to rise above flood stage late this evening to a crest of 9.8 feet tomorrow morning. It will then fall below flood stage tomorrow afternoon. Flood stage is 8.0 feet. Flood history, this crest compares to a previous crest of 9.8 feet on December 28, 2023. http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood. Flood warning in effect from this evening to late tomorrow morning. What? Major flooding is forecast. This approaches the flood that occurred. Where? Christina River at Coop Bridge. When? From this evening to late tomorrow morning. Impacts. Flooding begins in fields and floodplain adjacent to the river. 0.0 feet. 9.0 feet. Flooding begins in the town of Christiana. East Main Street, Del 7 begins to flood, as does Water Street. Meadow Road near Newcastle Airport is subject to flooding. Barksdale Road near Cashew Mill Road is also subject to flooding, as are residential backyards. At 11.5 feet, portions of Duras Heights near Newcastle Airport begin to flood, including Dawn Avenue. Airport Road at the Newcastle Airport begins to flood as the Christina River backs up the Nonsuch Creek. Waltham Road in the Bear area also floods. Flooding also occurs around Smalley's Pond Dam in Christiana. At 12.0 feet, significant flooding occurs on Meadow Road in Christiana. Roads are closed. Homes are flooded. Salem Church Road and Raybold Road floods in Christiana also flood and are subject to closures. Residential backyards can flood in this area. Flooding also occurs in Newark on West Chestnut Road and South College Avenue. At 12.5 feet, evacuations are possible in Duras Heights. Airport Road at the Newcastle Airport floods is closed. Businesses are flooded. Flooding increases in Newark. Flooding also increases on Barksdale Road and can extend onto Cashew Mill Road. Businesses on South College Avenue take on water. At 13.0 feet, flooding increases. Evacuations also increase in the towns of Newark and Christiana. Roads become impassable. Additional details, at 6:15 p.m. Tuesday the stage was 9.2 feet and rising. Forecast, the river is expected to rise above flood stage this evening to a flood warning in effect from this evening to early tomorrow afternoon. What? Minor flooding is occurring and major flooding is forecast. Where? East Branch Brandywine Creek below Downingtown. When? From this evening to early tomorrow afternoon. Impacts. At 6.0 feet, open adjacent land next to the creek floods. At 8.0 feet, Dowling Forge Road begins to flood. At 9.0 feet, high water on the Brandywine sends back water up Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek floods, inundating parks and the Downingtown Little League fields. At 11.0 feet, Jefferson Avenue in Downingtown floods. Business Route 30 and Pennsylvania Avenue also flood. At 12.0 feet, residential basements flood along Jefferson Avenue. At 13.0 feet, Route 30 in Downingtown is closed due to flooding. Route 322 Brandywine Avenue is closed between Business 30 and Boot Road due to flooding. Businesses along Business Route 30 between the creek and Downing Avenue take on water. Additional at 6:45 p.m. Tuesday the stage was 7.1 feet and rising. Recent activity, the maximum river stage in the 24 hours ending at 6:45 p.m. Tuesday was 7.1 feet. Forecast, the river is expected to rise to a crest of 12.3 feet late this evening. It will then fall below flood stage tomorrow morning. Flood stage is 7.0 feet. Flood history. This crest compares to a previous crest of 12.4 feet on June 9, 2021.
Really?
http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood.
Oh.
When? From this evening to early tomorrow afternoon. Flood warning in effect from this evening to late tomorrow morning. What? Moderate flooding is forecast. Wait. Chester Creek near Chester. When? From this evening to late tomorrow morning. Impacts. At 7.0 feet, the creek floods adjacent open land. At 10.5 feet, flood damage adjacent to the creek begins in the city of Chester. At 11.5 feet, Parker and Curlin Streets flood. The 600 to 1300 blocks of Parker Street are subject to evacuations. The 1300, 1400 blocks of Curlin Street are also subject to evacuations. At 12.5 feet, the Parker Manor section of Chester is subject to evacuations. At 13.0 feet, Chester Creek Road floods in Brookhaven Borough. Closures are possible between Dutton Mill Road and Bridgewater Road. Mount Alvena Road between Middletown and Aston is closed due to flooding. At 14.0 feet, Chester Creek Road near West Milton Road floods. Additional details, at 6:46 p.m. Tuesday the stage was 7.0 feet and rising. Forecast, the river will rise above flood stage this evening to 13.0 feet late this evening. It will then fall below flood stage just after midnight tonight to 2.9 feet and begin rising again tomorrow afternoon. It will rise to 3.1 feet tomorrow evening. It will then fall to 2.9 feet and begin rising again late tomorrow evening. It will then rise again but remain below flood stage. Flood stage is 8.0 feet. Flood history. This crest compares to a previous crest of 12.2 feet on April 2nd, 2005. http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood. Flood warning in effect from this evening to tomorrow morning. What? Moderate flooding is forecast. Where? Red Clay Creek at Wooddale. When? From this evening to tomorrow morning. Impacts. At 5.5 feet, flooding begins in adjacent open fields. At 7.5 feet, Barley Mill Road begins to flood. Brandywine Springs Park floods. At 8.5 feet, flooding begins near Old Capitol Trail and Newport Road. Additional details, at 6:45 p.m. Tuesday the stage was 5.4 feet and rising. Forecast, the river is expected to rise above flood stage this evening to a crest of 8.9 feet late this evening. It will then fall below flood stage just after midnight tonight. Flood stage is 7.0 feet. Flood history, this crest compares to a previous crest of 9.0 feet on January 19, 1996. http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood. What? Flood warning in effect until late tomorrow morning. Moderate flooding is forecast. Where? White Clay Creek near Newark. When? Until late tomorrow morning. Impacts. At 11.0 feet, flooding begins into adjacent open fields. At 13.3 feet, Delaware Route 7, Stanton Christiana Road, begins to flood. At 13.5 feet, businesses on Delaware Route 7 begin to flood. Additional details, at 6:15 p.m. Tuesday the stage was 9.0 feet and rising. Forecast, the river is expected to rise above flood stage this evening to a crest of 15.9 feet just after midnight tonight. It will then fall below flood stage late tonight. Flood stage is 13.0 feet. Flood history, this crest compares to a previous crest of 15.9 feet on January 19, 1996. http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood. Weather Service in Wakefield has issued a flash flood warning for southeastern Dorchester County in southeastern Maryland, northern Rico County in southeastern Maryland, until 3:45 a.m. Wednesday. At 9:41 p.m., Doppler radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rain across the warned area. Between 2 and 3 inches of rain have fallen. Additional rainfall of 1 to 2 inches are possible in the warned area. Flash flooding is ongoing or expected to begin shortly. Hazard, flash flooding caused by thunderstorms. Source, radar. Impact, flash flooding of small creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets and underpasses, as well as other poor drainage and low-lying areas. Some locations that will experience flash flooding include Hurla, Hebron, Sharptown, Secretary, Vienna, East New Market, Morelos Springs, Galestown, Brookview, El Dorado, Linkwood, With the Queen, Royal Oak, Bivalve, Cap Penny, Green Hill, Nanticoke, and Elliott. Turn around. Don't drown when encountering flooded roads. Most flood deaths occur in vehicles. Be especially cautious at night when it is harder to recognize the dangers of flooding. The current time is 9:44 p.m. Flood warning in effect from late tonight to early Thursday morning. What? Minor flooding is forecast. Where? Schuylkill River at Philadelphia. When? From late tonight to early Thursday morning. 10.4 feet. Kelly Drive is flooded and closed between North Ferry Road and Falls Bridge. At 11.0 feet, Kelly Drive is flooded and closed between Hunting Park Avenue and Falls Bridge. The Flood Rock area is flooded. At 11.5 feet, Route 1 off ramp to Ridge Avenue is flooded and closed. NLK Drive is flooded and closed between Greenland Drive and Montgomery Drive. At 12.1 feet, Main Street in Manila floods in the area of Sher Lane. At 13.0 feet, Main Street in Manila is closed from Ridge Avenue to Leverton Street. Additional details. At 9 p.m. Tuesday, the stage was 8.2 feet. Forecast. The river is expected to rise above flood stage late tonight to 12.2 feet tomorrow morning. It will then fall below flood stage tomorrow evening. Flood stage is 11.0 feet. Flood history. This crest compares to a previous crest of 12.1 feet on October 9th, 2005. http://wweather.gov/safety/flood. Additional details. At 10:01 p.m. Tuesday, the stage was 5.5 feet. Forecast. The creek is expected to rise above flood stage late tomorrow morning to a crest of 7.3 feet early tomorrow afternoon. It will then fall below flood stage late tomorrow evening. Flood stage is 7.0 feet. http://wweather.gov/safety/flood. What? Flooding caused by rain and snow altitude 2 to 3 feet of inundation above ground level in low-lying areas near shorelines and tidal waterways. Where? In New Jersey, Mercer, Gloucester, Camden, and northwestern Burlington. In Pennsylvania, Delaware, Philadelphia, and Lower Bucks. When? Until 7 p.m. Saturday. Impacts. At this level, flooding may become severe enough to cause some structural damage along with widespread roadway flooding near tidal waterways. Some locations may become isolated by the flood waters. At this level, widespread roadway flooding occurs along tidal waterways. Some roads become impassable. Minor damage to vulnerable structures may begin to occur. Additional details. Widespread minor flooding is now forecast to occur with this afternoon's high tide, so this warning will now go into effect starting this afternoon. Strong southerly winds are forecast to increase tonight, which is forecast to lead to another round of moderate to major coastal flooding impacts along the tidal Delaware River beginning with the overnight high tide tonight. Due to additional freshwater runoff and persistent southwest winds, moderate to major flooding is forecast to persist through the Saturday afternoon high tide as well. Take the necessary actions to protect flood-prone property. If travel is required, do not drive around barricades or through water of unknown depth. At noon at the